Welcome to the Panic Button, everyone. I'm Nina.
I'm not prepared. I'm just... I'm Jessie.
So today we're going to go over a video of Asmongold talking about his views on trans. And
Okay. Good enough, I guess.
certain people in his audience are pushing back and don't agree, think it's an L take, etc., etc. So I figured, let's react to it.
These are my actual viewpoints of being trans. I actually tremendously empathize with trans people, and while I don't think that you can change your gender, you genuinely can't. Like, it's not biologically possible yet. I'm willing to affirm a person's identity as long as it's the opposite gender. I'm not going to affirm a third identity. I'm not going to affirm a fake gender. But if somebody wants to dress, act, and behave like a female and then, want to be treated that way, I'm willing to play along with that because I just want to have a harmonious society with as little friction as possible. This is what I think. And if you don't think this, I'm not going to make you think.
There's that.
I agree to an extent. If this is really how they want to live their life and they're not hurting anyone or like pushing it on kids, sure. However, if you want to act like a woman and be treated like a woman, are you going to go to the gynecologist? Are you going to waste resources that women could use? Are you going to be a predator in their spaces? Because if that's the case, then I don't want you to be able to.
To what?
Identify as the gender you choose to.
Legally?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it made sense.
Up until that point, then yes. Because I agree, as long as they're not hurting anyone or pushing themselves on children or their ideas on children, I'll let them live peacefully. But when you start pushing and when you start causing all these issues and the fact that it's hard to tell if you're going to put women in danger or not, that's where the problems come in.
Yeah. Key words here that he said was play along. I think for a lot of, I'd say a handful, maybe more, of trans people won't like that wordage because you're saying
Trans
play
women
along.
are women.
Yeah, they want you to believe what you're saying, not just play along and pretend. They want you to believe it. So if you don't believe it, playing along and playing pretend with what they think they are isn't going to be good enough for some of these men pretending to be women.
Well, the fact at the end of the day is that you either have to accept the fact that people are going to believe you're pretending to be the other gender, or they're not going to let you do it at all. There's only two options. Mm-hmm. No one actually sends you to the gynecologist. No one gives you a pap smear. No one I don't think that they understand. No one gives you a pregnancy test. No one asks when your last period was. We know that it's not real. We know it's pretend.
Yeah.
We're playing pretend in order to alleviate whatever stress you say you're having.
Or keep the peace.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that we don't know it's pretend nonetheless.
This is what I think. I have a tremendous amount of empathy for trans people, and the reason why I do is because when I lost my teeth, I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize the kind of person that I was, and I hated the way I looked. I hated what I was. I hated the fact that I wasn't where I was in my own mind, and it created a level of cognitive dissonance between who I believed I was and who I was in the mirror. And it fucked my head up a lot, and it really bothered me. So when I think about the experience that a trans person has, I think about that multiplied by 1,000. And then everything in your whole life is catered around the way that people.
Okay, here's the thing. We have to be incredibly specific when we're talking about trans, okay? Trans person. What does that mean? Does that mean a drag queen? Does that mean a transvestite?
Well,
does that mean a cross-dresser? Does that mean some dude who has a fetish for wearing women's clothes? Is this a guy who is this like a peeping Tom who wants to just invade women's spaces and make them feel uncomfortable to get off or something? Is this like a woman-hating man who likes to wear women's clothes and is intentionally invading women's spaces and sports in order to make them angry or uncomfortable? We got to be very specific when we're talking about what trans is. Or is this a person who has a mental illness and they have gender dysphoria and it's something that they struggle with? and it's sincere.
This is the hard part about having this conversation as a reaction and not as a conversation, is that is a good argument, don't get me wrong. But based on what he has been saying, it sounds like he's talking about people who truly suffer from gender dysphoria. He's referring to the moment he looked at himself and saw not what he was expecting.
Right.
Right. So someone who transitions and can relate to that isn't an AGP necessarily, right? That would be someone who does suffer from gender dysphoria, right?
Right.
Which is what you would call a transsexual. Mm-hmm. Who I would call transsexual once they went on and had a procedure. So clearly he's talking about the people who actually suffer based on what his description was, right? Mm-hmm. But to give that same, to imagine that every single person who says they're trans has that deep of a gender dysphoria. We've gotten comments and people say, oh, you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans.
Yes, you do.
You kind of do, or else you're just doing body modifications.
Or you're just some creepy dude with a fetish.
With body modifications.
Some don't even do that.
Because you don't want to be seen. Like, it's weird. Mm-hmm. So that's my take. That's my opinion, and that's all I was trying to say. I wasn't trying to interrupt you, but that was my opinion on what he said and how he said it.
Right. The problem is that there's a lot of bad actors and fake people and stolen valoring transsexual type of people who will claim to be trans in order to get away with doing creepy stuff or even predatory stuff.
Or even just to get attention.
Or even to get attention.
Like Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah.
I don't think he's necessarily doing anything inherently predatory. Kids will be influenced by celebrity, so I don't think he's intentionally doing malicious things, but he is inherently malicious.
Yeah, and he says that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. If you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans, you shouldn't be calling yourself trans.
I agree. And it's not transition surgeries, they're body modifications at that point. Getting
Right.
breasts on a man who doesn't have gender dysphoria and doesn't see himself as a woman is just a body modification.
Yeah. The problem here is that he's not being specific. And a lot of people will hear him speak and attribute trans to the bad actors within the trans community claiming to be trans. You know, like the dude at Planet Fitness in the bathroom, female locker room.
And as many people call us transphobic, we agree with his take for the most part.
We agree with the accurate term of what trans is.
If someone is suffering to that degree when they look at themselves as the gender they were born as, then we will have sympathy. If they don't, then that's a different story.
Right. But since we don't know who is who, because everyone's calling themselves trans.
And we don't know how people feel.
Right. It's hard to want to give empathy to anyone who calls themselves trans.
I wouldn't say anyone. I'd say to everyone, specifically.
To everyone, yeah.
Because we can give it to any specific person that we can hear the story from that says, like, oh, you know, I know that I'm a man, but I feel more comfortable this way. You know, we've heard the people, we've had the conversations, we've met the people, and we have no issues with the people who truly suffer. It's the people who are co-opting this entire situation. That's the people we have a problem with. And since there's no clear definitive line, there's no easy way for him to tell, there's no easy way for us to tell. That's what makes us hard.
Yeah.
I look at every person with the same amount of, okay, we're going into this. But sometimes you can see, like, these people are crazy. Mm-hmm. And you need to be able to differentiate between trans and crazy.
Right. And since trans doesn't have a definite, well, it has a very wide definition, and it's actually eradicated the original definition. Because of that, just willy-nilly saying trans it's too open.
It's dangerous for trans people because now anyone who identifies as trans is going to be what the community is viewed as. Mm-hmm. And a lot of trans people, truly transsexual people, aren't like that. Even some of the confused ones aren't like that.
Mm-hmm. See, when they started pushing, you don't need a mental illness to be trans, that's when they told everybody that, yeah, this is something else. This is like a fetish. This is an ego trip. This is, you know, all about me and how I look. And it has nothing to do with actually going through any anguish or struggle. You know, then it's just a hobby. And I don't want to play along with someone's hobby because they're on a power trip. You
Because
know,
they have a sexual incline towards something. Yeah, like the Planet Fitness people.
Yeah, I don't want to play into their fetish, but you don't know if someone's saying they're trans is going to be like that or actually have like gender dysphoria and anguish and stuff. So.
And like you said, it didn't used to be like that. You knew that the trans people you interacted with clearly were suffering, and so now they're identifying this way. And so you're going to play nice societally because you know that they must be hurting to do this.
Yeah, but a lot of people will play along because they're afraid of them.
Nowadays, yeah.
Because they're afraid that they're crazy and they're going to like, they've seen enough
Lash
videos
out, yeah.
to
Let's say
know
just
that
lash out.
like, these guys who think they're women will, or are pretending to be women will lash out. So women will definitely, for the most part, not engage.
I wouldn't.
Or interacting with you in this way. So I can empathize with them and I can see, you know what, whether you actually are the other gender or not, I realize how much pain you must be in and how unpleasant and horrible this must be for you to be put in a body that you feel like isn't your own. So I try to be extremely sympathetic and understanding to these people because I view them as being a victim of circumstance. They're a victim of their own feelings. They're a victim of the way that, you know, they've been born, and they wish it wasn't that way. I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. I empathize with them too, but I think because gender is such a core element that really it's horrible really to imagine what that would be like if you were something that you believe that you weren't. And so, that's generally how I view it. I think that anybody pushing gender ideology and trans ideology on anybody under like 16 is basically a child predator and a groomer, and they should be put in jail. I don't think that you should be able to do any sort of medical intervention to make somebody trans before they're 18. I think that you should be able to do any medical intervention after 18 to be trans. I think it's totally fine. And I don't see a problem with it. So that's actually, like, you want my actual viewpoint on it. That's my actual viewpoint on it. So yeah, there you go. Is that crazy? Like, yeah, yeah, genuine amount of empathy? Well, no, I'm the most empathetic streamer. People don't know this because they listen. People have selective empathy. They have very selective empathy. I don't. I have deep, great empathy. I don't look at what's good or bad. I look at what's right. And I do what's right. That's it. And humble. I am the most... No. I'm being honest. I'm being honest. And I will always make the right decision for the most people. I do that all the time. So yes. Opinion on women's restrooms in sports? It's actually so simple. Restrooms are based on sexuality and sexual organs. You cannot change a penis into a vagina. You cannot change a vagina into a penis. You can't do it. You can do something that's similar to it, but you cannot 1 to 2 and you cannot 2 to 1. You should be using the gender in my... Actually, this is actually what I think. This might sound like kind of an extreme opinion. I think that a trans... like a woman that transitions to a man should be able to use the men's bathroom, but a man that transitions to a woman should not be able to use the woman's bathroom. Does that make sense? And so, no? Okay. Let me explain the reason why. Women's bathrooms are made to protect women. We all agree on that, right? It's to be a safe space for women because women are smaller, weaker, and they can be more easily taken advantage of by a man. Equality? Equality isn't real. I don't care about equality. I care about what's right. So this is the reason I look at it. If you make a woman who is transitioned to a man go into the women's bathroom, you create a cultural expectation of being able to watch a presenting male walk into a women's bathroom. So you're going to have a lot of false negatives rather than false positives, because you could just have a man walk into the woman's bathroom at that point and say that they're trans. So I think only people presenting and identifying as women should be able to go into the women's bathroom. that are biologically women, or sorry, I think only biologically women that present and identify as women should be able to go into the women's bathroom. That's the reason why. Because that, in my opinion, is the option that is the least harm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Does it make sense? I mean, do you not agree? Because I think that's kind of been our stance the whole time.
Yeah. It's that whole not having a definition for trans that bothers me. And then the blue states taking it even further to where not only do you not have to have gender dysphoria to be trans, but also you could just say you are, and everyone is supposed to believe, and the law is supposed to go along with what you say you are, because women have specific rights and spaces for safety reasons. And when you take that safeguard away to where any guy can just say he's something and get access to those spaces and take advantage, and make women uncomfortable, that's when things become dangerous for women. That's when things get messy and sticky. Taking away the definition that clearly states that trans is a mental illness where you suffer from gender dysphoria, taking that away and just allowing any man to just say the magic words and he's all of a sudden got women's rights and spaces, that's really dangerous, and it's really stupid, and it's giving way too much blind faith to people you don't know. Now, I know for like politicians and rich people, they can afford to get away with that safety-wise because they're in their gated communities and stuff. But for regular people, it really shits on us. And it puts us women in danger because these people have blind faith in strangers, Yeah. It's taking away our rights and giving them to people you can't trust, but you're blindly trusting. For what reason?
We were
because they're saying they're a minority?
Yeah.
But how do you know? And should we really be creating laws based on just how someone feels? And
I don't think so.
Logistics and statistics and logic?
Or votes. Like, honestly, no one's voting for this anymore.
No, I didn't vote for this. I voted for Trump specifically because of the illegal immigration and this, which is a big thing. Like if any trans person, I've heard this a lot. I've heard it a lot from biological women. I've heard a lot from like men who think they're women. When a guy who thinks he's a woman say you don't need to have gender dysphoria to be trans, it's a fetish.
It's a red flag.
It's a giant red flag because now he's saying that I don't believe I was born in the wrong body. I just like wearing women's clothes and taking advantage of their spaces and making them feel uncomfortable.
I think I like this better, yeah.
And I get off on that, and it's a fetish.
It's an option I had, so I executed it.
Yeah. Or you're just doing it completely for attention, but still you're like some kind of woman-hating man who is just trying to take advantage of the loopholes, in order to play out your fetish or make women feel uncomfortable because you hate them, whatever it is. That's what you're saying when you say that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. And I would never trust anybody like that at all. Because you just gave away your secret, which is an open secret, that you don't believe you're in the wrong
feel
body.
Like you're trans.
Yeah, you don't have gender dysphoria. Yeah.
Gender dysphoria is why we invented transness to begin with.
Yeah, you're just a creep who wants to
co-opt the trans movement.
Yeah, prey on women, do not a good person, just not a good person with good intentions.
Nope.
That's what you're saying. So that's why we need to bring back safeguards. We need to get rid of this whole like self-ID crap and allowing men to just take advantage of loopholes, and it's not the good kind of men, it's the bad kind of men. You're allowing the bad kind of men to identify and to come into our spaces and compete with us in sports or against us in sports. You're allowing bad faith, bad actors, bad men to just say a sentence and do whatever the hell they want. There used to be peeping Toms. Remember those? Yeah. Well, they call themselves women now. And they're in the bathroom and they're doing weird stuff in there and creepy stuff and predatory stuff. And we should not be allowing that to take place. And we shouldn't have laws protecting these creepy guys just because they said a sentence.
Agreed.
And that's how I feel about that.
And we pretty much agree with Asmongold. So, like, I know there's always the extreme beliefs that, like, trans people in general are just bad. But, like, if someone's hurting this bad, what is the alternative?
I don't know.
But only if they're hurting this bad. I think you should have to have therapy. I agree with what he said. Once you turn 18, you should be allowed to have those surgeries, but only with a medical diagnosis. I think that under 18, you don't touch them at all. After 18, they can have every bit of the surgery they want as long as a psychiatrist and a therapist have been involved for at least a year. Then, after 18, please have whatever you need to make yourself feel better. I'm not kidding. I mean that. Is that wrong?
No.
What else would you do with those people?
Therapy, but not affirming therapy, probing therapy, like therapy that challenges you and gets to the bottom of things.
Right.
Because that's the whole purpose of therapy.
But
Therapy
even-
isn't there to be your cheerleader. They're
even at
there to
that-
like find out what's going on and fix it or try to fix it.
Even at that, people who are transsexual and suffer from gender dysphoria still feel like imposter syndrome because they know that they're not truly the thing that they're pretending to be. And that's, I think, what really takes out the transgender community, like the actual people who suffer, is that they have this imposter syndrome because they know they're not what they say they are. And that is what eats away at them, I'm sure. And I don't suffer from it, but I'm sure that's part of what's the problem. And so, to a certain degree, what can you do? You can try and study it more, but instead they're just popping off saying, oh, we did surgeries, bye, good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they should really do more research, and hopefully one day we won't have to transition people. We can actually have an effective therapy measure. But until then, if they have been cleared by a doctor to have gender dysphoria, I think they should be allowed after 18 to have whatever procedures they need to have.
Yeah, and we need to get rid of that whole self-ID thing. That's causing nothing but problems. That's not helping anyone but bad men. And it's harming women and children in the process.
And it stops good people from wanting any transition surgeries to happen.
Yeah, it's stopping good people who would normally be empathetic. It makes them incredibly cautious and sometimes even to the extreme of hateful.
Yes.
Because they're just sick of it, because people are just done. They're done. They're sick of it. They've seen
the negative,
how fake it is. For most of these guys pretending to be women, people can see, oh, this is bullshit.
This is baloney.
Yeah, this isn't anything where they're hurting or struggling.
This isn't real.
Like, how could you say that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans and then say that misgendering you hurts you?
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any damn sense. So unless you're like a freaking control freak and you get off on it.
That's what a lot of these people are.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we need a lot of changing. And until then, the trans community is going to suffer because of it.
Unfortunately, because like I said, there are people out there who truly suffer and don't know what's going on, and they're trying to figure it out. And so the poor, confused individuals, on top of the people who actually are having gender dysphoria, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
And it's just so sad that we can't tell who is who, because everyone is just lumped into this big clusterfuck of
Queerness.
pronouns, queerness and identities and fetish, and we just don't know who's who. Performances.
The queer orgy of
Yeah,
life
we just
here.
don't. Yeah, we need to be more specific. We need more boundaries. And what do you guys think? Like and subscribe, join our memberships to keep this channel going, and we'll see you in the next one.
This is what I did this time. Bye.